Biology, study of biological stuff. Zoology, study of food. No. And botany, which is really the other man out because it's got biology, but nevertheless it's a study of plants. I think botany didn't really work. And the coolest one, coprology. What is coprology, you ask? It's a very, very interesting subject. What do you think that is, guys? That's 20 centimeters long and it's about yay big. And that little thing came out of a very sad Viking and ended up in a toilet. But what is really cool about coprology, or the study of food, is that from that we discovered that this guy died with terrible intestinal wounds and he ate a lot of meat in his diet. So pretty unhealthy Viking. So, paleontology, study of fossils, origin of life, evolution, all that stuff. Cool stuff. We've got some of the best archaeology sites and paleontology sites in the world. This is from the Free State, the Golden Gate National Park, and it's the oldest dinosaur nests found in South Africa. You can actually see the little baby dinosaur ever entombed in the rock. It is epic. We get amber. If you ever watched Jurassic Park, you know that they suck the blood out of the mosquito that's trapped in the amber and they make big dinosaurs. It's a thing. Paleontology, study of our ancestors. So these are the sites that come from South Africa and East Africa. And this is Kenny Lou, my friend. She is all that stuff. You can read it there. She's epic and she just does it. She goes into caves and explores and finds our very, very ancient ancestors. So, what is archaeology? Archaeology is a study of how people live. So we look at all the artifacts, we take the artifacts, but there's millions of people that have died without a story. So the history, the written stuff, and the oral history is only, and what we hear is only the stuff that they wanted us, or other people wanted us to hear. So people like you and me, we have no story. Once we die, sometimes unless we've written something down about our history, we're gone. That's it. Done, dusted. So a lot of our histories are written about victorious people, the big, and it's mostly white men, let's be honest. All the history is about white men, what white men did. People are not white and women pretty much left out of the history. What archaeology does is it tells the story of the people with no voice. And that is really, really important. It also tells us more about what, you see, this is what my brain is catching, and this is what happened to you guys. So what am I doing? I'm just talking until my brain catches up with my mouth. So, we write the story that we want people to hear. If you look on Facebook and Instagram and all this, it's like, oh, look at me in the Maldives, and oh, look at me doing this cool stuff. We don't hear about them struggling with their children, or trying to pay the bills, or maybe having an alcoholic father or husband. We don't hear those stories. We only hear what they want us to hear. So what archaeology does is it finds the story of the real truth, not just what they want the world to hear. So a very famous example of this, and it's not so macabre because other examples are very macabre, is a very, very religious group in America in the 1600s. It was strictly no alcohol, no nothing. And so they look on paper like these really pure and moral people. And when they did the archaeology of these houses, they were digging up the floorboards, and what had happened is these people had been drinking on it quiet and just storing all the bottles in their floorboards. So that is really, it's pretty cool that we hear the real story of what it is, and that people are just people. So, these are some of the artifacts that we find in South Africa, and we've got sort of very, very broadly speaking, you can break it up into Stone Age, Iron Age, and Colonial. Boom. Stone Age is divided into very early Stone Age, middle Stone Age, later Stone Age. Iron Age, or early farming communities, is a better thing, dates from 1200, 1800 years ago to sort of about 500 years ago, but it carries on. And then you look at the colonial period, which is kind the colonial period or the historic period is the last 500 years, and it sort of covers everybody because there were still people with Stone Age technology and Stone Age tools and Iron Age technology, and then you got the whites coming along with all their sort of modern technology, and so you get this amalgamation of all these cultures coming together, clashing and fighting and loving and doing the stuff humans do. So, artifacts are really, really important. So it's really cool if you're walking along and you find a really cool artifact. And I mean, I'm just as likely to do something that I shouldn't do because you can resist a nice Stone Age tool. Can you see it? Okay, there we go. Piece of early farming community pottery. I'm walking along the beach, I see this, oh, nice. Yeah, I'm a magpie. And I want to take it. This tells a story, but it only tells a story because it's in the context with that, which is a shell, and that, and that. Now you find those four things together, that creates a story. Otherwise, that's just another piece of ceramic. So you take this nice piece of ceramic away, and the gourd and the shell and the thing are left behind. Now somebody comes along and they go, oh well, you know, it's Stone Age, because that's what you got. Now you got this, and it's like, oh wow, if we had left that behind, we would know that that story was incomplete. So even though it's difficult, it's really difficult to leave stuff where it is. Unless you're an archaeologist, in which case you just take it all. So, the most important thing is how we do it. You firstly ask a question. You can't just go around digging random holes in the ground. You've got to have a question you want to answer. Why is Bob's house nicer than my house? Something. Doesn't matter. But you've got to look for evidence for answers. You can't decide what the answer is before you have looked at the evidence. You have to look at the evidence, and the evidence tells you what the answer is. And then you go and look for sites. And those are multiple, as you guys know. There's many ways of finding a site. Many, and you excavate, and then you figure out what you've got, which is really cool fun. So, those are some of the famous sites. Really, like everybody knows the Sphinx in Egypt and the pyramids. This is a shipwreck. Also pretty cool, pretty obvious site. Inkcubeko, one of the most epic sites ever here in South Africa. Archaeology World Heritage Site, which are the most amazing rock art. And then you've got some things that don't look so obvious. These are actually hunter hides, pits in Namibia. So it just looks like a pile of rocks. But because there's artifacts and because there's other things around that, and also oral histories, we know differently. So it's not always obvious as to one of the archaeological sites. What we've got tons of along our coast is these shell middens. Now these shell middens are my best. Shell middens are basically the giant rubbish pits of the past. And people would come down and harvest shellfish and stuff across all different groups and leave these giant middens everywhere. Because fonts of information about our past. So if you see something like this along our beaches, that's a shell midden, and they are very cool. So you also get open sites. This is where people live. Sometimes they're very ephemeral, sometimes it's huts, sometimes it's just a few days that somebody spent there, but we leave traces of us wherever we go. So this is from Maritime. It's 300,000 years ago. There's a Stone Age site on the heads in Maritime. So the history here of people goes back very, very, very far. More west together. The oldest art in the world comes from Cromwell's Cave, which is just down the road. We've got Nelson Bay Cave, which is up the road in Unearthed Bay, also 125,000 years ago. Think about that. That's a long time that people have been using the sea and living in South Africa. And then, of course, there's the Okay, there's not a lot of rock art ships in it. So the ones that are is very cool because these are people of first contact with European settlers who have seen this and holy hell, let's go put this on the wall for posterity. And also colonial sites. Shamana's back here in Hacktown, where it's underneath existing buildings of a town. Sigrid Cave is a really cool site, and I'm showing it to you because it's got some really cool excavations that went on there. You can see where they're excavating in squares. So it's not always, we do layers, but I'll explain this very quickly. This is just some nice pictures to show you us how you work. Can you see how we've covered this up? So the deposit underneath is not trampled on, because you want to protect it. So the robot, has to be off the ground somewhere, because this is very, very fragile. So this is, you guys must have read about stratigraphy when you were doing research on archaeology. Each layer represents a different occupation period. So this is thousands and thousands and thousands of years of occupation. So it is excavated very, very carefully. And I know you guys want your tools and stuff, and that's cool. I love tech myself. But at the end of the day, the human eye sees the best and acts the best. But we can have tools that help us to do our job. So that's maybe civet. It's a horrible job. Probably will end up with lung cancer one day. And then we pack it into the bags. So it's very eco-friendly. We take the civet stuff and we throw it into bags, and we use it to support the site afterwards. And then you simply sort it. And that is days and days of sorting. You take charcoal to one side and stone to another side. If you think it's interesting, you put it in a bag, so what? Worst case, if they look at you and say, I don't know why she picked that up, and chuck it up. And that's how you sort it. Every single thing comes out of the sieve. And you categorize every single thing. And you label it. Now, if you were younger kids, I don't know, you each had a brown paper bag and you would have labeled it yourself. But you put the date to it, the name of the site, the source, where it is in the square, and that's how you set up a grid. So everything is grid, everything is scientific, everything is done precisely. And I will go through this because this comes from. Then all of these things, so each layer is given a name as well. So all of these things are recorded on excavation forms. So you can find the object, you can find exactly where that object is, because it will get in a bag and it will have, you can put it exactly where it was, both flat in 2 dimensions and in the 3 dimension. You can place that artifact so you know what it's associated with, which layer, which age, everything. My very most favorite thing in the whole world is stratigraphy, and it drives my kids insane. I'm like, oh, look at that stratigraphy, look at that, it's the layers. And it's beautiful and it tells a story. It is a form of art. So, we record it now, or it used to be in the old days, when Noah was getting on his ark of the theodolite. Now we use total stations, it's all digital, it's very cool, and laser scanning. But that's not as many people that have laser scanning and so forth, because it's super duper expensive. Nevertheless, you look at the colour of the soil, it's important. You literally record every minute artifact, every minute piece of detail on every single layer, whether it's a seed, whether it's the colour of the soil, a little piece of ash, a little bit of charcoal. So in the 60s, they used to go in there and they'd look for cool artifacts. Oh, look, that's a proper stone tool. And they were throwing everything else away. The charcoal, because we can't do anything with it. Big mistake, huge. Because now they have discovered they can reconstitute that artifact. They can find the flakes that belong to that artifact through 3D scanning and also just human eyes. And then you can say, actually, this was a manufacturing site. But they used to just chuck all that stuff up. The charcoal, they couldn't do anything with it now. Now they can tell you the species of tree. They can do, obviously, dating with it. They can get DNA out of soil. No, I'm sorry, but that has got to be next level best stuff ever. So it's not like I need a giant bone to get some DNA. You can take the soil around this and you can see what is, that's only going to get better. That technology is going to be phenomenal in understanding our archaeological record. So, what is next? If I'm boring you, I'm sorry, it's too bad. So this is ochre on an upper brownstone. Upper brownstone is something like, well, it's a not one, but anyway, a big round rock. Obviously in the brownstone, and they would grind there we go, that stuff. They're grains. So on it they found ochre, which means they were grinding ochre. And what is ochre used for? Ochre has got multiple uses. They can be used to mix it with fat, so they protect themselves from the heat and the mosquitoes and everything else, and the tsetse flame. It is attached to hunting weapons, and it is also mixed in with the mastics to attach the blades to the spears. It's also art. The most basic human expression. So those are bone tools. So that might not look like much to somebody, but that is literally a bone tool. That tells us more about our past. These are jewelry. So when people start using jewelry, that's really that human thought, that human emotion, that is self-expression. This is bedding. So before that we were just like, oh, it's just rubbish. From, the caves when we lived in continuously, it's not like a town. They would live there for a while, maybe it would get a bit of a drought, or it would be a bit, there was no game around for it, they would move off, and maybe they'd come back 100 years later, or 10 years later. So that might have been seen as just rubbish, but it was actually sedge grasses from down the river in Sibudu, and it's been proven that this sedge, this bedding has anti-insect properties. And they were basically coming in, they were putting this down and then sleeping on it. And then it was being compacted and so they added it. And that's pretty cool. It's like the oldest bedding in the world. So, how did archaeologists figure out that people have been eating people back in 12th century science in America? So I'm not going to read this slide to you because it's boring, you can all read, you can read it yourself. But they took all the clues from around, and then the biggest clue was human myoglobin in the pots, and bones and bone teeth and fragments. So they figured out that there was a bit of a famine, and people got hungry, and so they munched each other. Did they kill each other? Maybe, maybe not, but they certainly were eating each other. And back to the good old poop relics, they found human bone in the poop. So these are all things that science helps with. You can't do that stuff without knowing science. I can't look at a piece of bone, a tiny little fragment of bone, and say, that's human, because I would be full of rubbish. But science can tell us that it's human. So, what do? Maritime archaeology. So, maritime archaeology usually starts like this. Ship is sailing along merrily, and spots of bother breaks, trouble breaks out, and it steadily gets worse, and then gets really worse, and then a few years later they find a clue, and they study the clue, and they go look for the site, and they look high, and they look low. This is an example of low. Eventually found a wreck that looks like that, and they bring up the artifacts which never look like that, or that, and they study the artifacts, and a bit of the academic debate breaks out, and they study the artifacts, and eventually they settle on an idea and they present it to the museum. That's not really what it looks like. That's what it looks like. That is actually a shipwreck. You look at it, you see a muscle beef. It's a shipwreck under there. So we search all work underwater, so we have to create 3 or 4 or 10 ways that we measure with GPS, and then we do it the old-fashioned way. We take 3 tape measures, and we measure it to 3 different points. It's old school mapping, and it's the only way we've got. We don't have another way of doing it. Okay, that's a lie. They've got underwater laser scanners, which, yes, one day when I grow up. And we all this per map. And now this is cool because we made a mistake. Our line was too short, so we made it a bit shorter, and we ended up with a banana-shaped boat. And we were like, how could that be a banana-shaped boat? I'm pretty sure it's straight. And all because we did not have enough string. So we had shortened it just a little bit, and then we ended up with this ship that looked like this, but it was actually like this. So that is the mistakes we made. So I don't know if I can click on this because I'm not on the internet. But it is a photographic design. It is a 3-dimensional model that we built. Videos, and then I take videos because, and we swim a bit sort of kind of straight, which is what the other girls are talking about. It's one of our problems, is you want to try and stay the same distance off the seabed. And we just take a lot of videos, and you grab every 3rd or 5th frame and we put it in this software called AgriSoft, and after a lot of maneuvering and wiggling and moving stuff, you eventually end up with a 3D model. That is a really cool tech. So, then you can study it, because when you're down there and under the water, it's really hard to actually, you're concentrating on the shark about to eat you, and you're concentrating on that cool fish over there, and getting hit by the wave here, and so it's really hard to see everything. So if you can get good video footage, you can go back and study it. I have spent hundreds of hours just looking through my old video footage to try and figure out what the hell it is I'm seeing, and then always want to just like, wish I could see just under this corner here. So anything that will help with photographing stuff like that is always going to be a good thing. And so I've got a lot of other stuff here in here that's about the integrity of the wood, and you test the metal, and you test this, and you test that. But at the end of the day, archaeology is just this amazing I want to show you this video because
Pointer was on the wrong screen because she's doing a double screen.
So this is photogrammetry. So you can explain
connected to a computer and bounces put in the bag.
Oh, is that what happened? She has to go get her mouse. Those programs have like a resend or refocus option.
sharpened piece of metal with measurements cut on the side, and you shove it in the wood as hard as you can, and then you measure how deep the wood goes, and then that's how you tell. So not every tool is high tech. And we take sediment samples. We look at the sediment, how deep the oxygen goes. So less oxygen, the more you're going to get better preservation. So if you've got a very oxygenated layer at the top, and if you move it around a lot, there's more creatures in there, there's more degradation of artifacts. The deeper you go, less oxygen, better preservation. And we excavate with very high-tech tool. It is a dustpan. And we have something that sucks the sand out as well. So that's, underwater is difficult. Underwater is probably the most intensely difficult excavations to do, especially in our waters. I have hung onto the piece of shipwreck with my knees like this and get swept back and come back to cathedral, and then get swept back by the sea and then come back into cathedral. It's hard. So if you want a hardcore job doing archaeology, go and get a maritime archaeologist. So there's some pretty cool shipwrecks in the Western Cape. Some Portuguese map. We've got some of the earliest shipwrecks in Mossel Bay, the earliest shipwreck. In Mossel Bay. We don't know where it is. They burnt it, so it wasn't red per se. The Portuguese were so full of their ship and they just burnt it. The Merlin is a slave ship. That would be a epic ship to find. It's a really cool story. Okay, so this is human stupidity for every level. So these guys, because they were such sterling people, went off to Madagascar and got some slaves, because that's what you did in those days. So they loaded their slaves up from Madagascar and they sailed off to Portugal, wherever they were going. So they're going along and they think, we got these really cool spears, okay, that we stole from the Malagasys. Let's get the Malagasys to clean them up and sharpen them. Okay, Malagasys go, oh good, we'll take those. And they take the ship over. Of course they go. They don't want to be slaves, they want to be free. So they get the ship back. But now they don't know how to sail. I'm sorry, it's such a horrible story, but it's funny because it's just like a comedy of errors. You couldn't make it do this. So we don't know how to sail. We don't know how to sail. We'll ask the Portuguese or Dutch, or I think it was Dutch actually, not the Portuguese. We'll ask the Dutch to sail us back to Madagascar. The Dutch go, okay, we'll take that. And they sailed them into the ground, into somewhere in the Western Cape. So it was just a disaster. People trusting people, but they shouldn't have trusted anyone. And it's one of the, it's sad, because it's slaves, and slavery is a horrible, horrible institution, but it's also very human. Just actually, I'll trust you, okay, I'm going to do this. Anyway, we still haven't found the shipwreck. We have looked very hard for it, and it would be a really cool yacht with the Dutch East India Company, not the Portuguese, sorry. And that would be a cool wreck to find, and we have looked for that. Remember guys, Google is your friend, okay? Everything can be found there. Everything. Don't quit relying. You guys are all AI. I'm going to say this straight up. AI is shit. Okay? It has potential. And it can be better. Do not rely too much on AI. It is still stupid. It is still learning. And if you rely on it, I'm not saying I love ChatGPT. I will throw anything through there and see what it spits out. It's really good for finding references. You say, hey, Chat, can you tell me how many shipwrecks have human bodies on? Okay. It comes back with references. You can't use ChatGPT as a reference. You have to look at it and say, please give me the references. And then you have to go and read the primary references. Because ChatGPT gets stuff wrong. You have to use it critically. And you cannot expect it. It is not taking my job away yet. I'm asked some question. I'm like, rubbish in, you're going to get rubbish out. So do not rely on AI for your research, for anything. Use it to say, how can I say this better? Or give me references for this. Don't just rely on AI. You are going to come short. Okay. There is very cool open source software if you're interested. There's something called QGIS, which is, okay, so GIS, it's a Geographic Information Systems. It's mapping, digital mapping, and the ArcGIS is very expensive programs. QGIS is open source, so it's people from all over. So no matter what field you end up going to, botany or biology or environmental management or whatever, and you need mapping, QGIS is free. There's lots of different add-ins you can use, and there's lots of videos online teaching you how to use it. There's lots of sites on everywhere on archaeology. YouTube really is an awesome place. You just have to use it carefully and check it every time. And that's, I think, question everything. And that's it. I'm done. There are archaeology biscuits here for everyone. It is a tennis biscuit with some chocolate icing on it. That's the girl. Little size. The little chocolate lights. It's got little hundreds of thousands of chocolate beads, and it's got little silver balls, which is iron, and the enjoy your chocolate biscuits.
I need the rest of the team in the kitchen so that we can sort our very special guest for the day. And if you guys want to come and see, they can be touched.
Yes.
Okay, if you want to come and see the artifacts and touch the artifacts, you are more than welcome to come. And please, you need to eat that biscuit so that she can study you, man, through your... Eat the biscuit, eat the biscuit, eat the biscuit.